greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to the start of another week, and we're going to kick off this week with continuing looking at Oliver Wakeman. Last week we did his solo albums, but today we're going to look at some of his collaboration albums he did with other artists. And I found 7 for you, all very good, so we'll kick off. So, coming in at number 7 from the year 2020, this is Yendor, which is an audio book, and it was a compliment to the recently republished children's hardback story Yendor, which is the story of a junior adventurer, and it's a fantasy story that's, and this version it delights young children and people that like prog. So the story is read by Rodney Matthews' wife, Sarah, and of course Oliver provides the music. So the first track on here is actually the whole thing together, the narration of the story and Oliver's soundtrack. Very, very good. Sarah's got a lot really nice voice you can hook into. Oliver's interpretation of it is fantastic. You don't appreciate this until you listen to the soundtrack. So the second track is just the story, and it's a really good story. Proper kid story, excellent stuff. And then you get just the soundtrack from Oliver. It's absolutely brilliant. The start of it's got this grandeur, big sort of court of a king or whatever, and then you get some gentle, especially the bits in the middle. It's absolutely wonderful. The guitar work is super. Some of the electronics is good, and then you get Rodney Matthews wobbling on about how he did the cover and all that. Yeah, it's all right. Okay, it is a children's story. I've got no problem with that, and it's very well written. Oliver's soundtrack is great, but it's not one that I will go back to. I have listened to the soundtrack a few times, and it is a fantastic soundtrack. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 6 from the year 2013. It's an album we've already covered, but I wanted to cover it again. And that's the collaboration he did with Gordon Giltrap in 2013, Ravens and Lullabies. So on here you've got Oliver Wakeman doing the pianos and keyboards, you've got Gordon Giltrap on guitars, vocals are split between Paul Manzi, Arena and Cats in Space vocalist, and Benoit David for Mystery, and of course Yes. Bass guitar Steve Amadeo, and on the drums Johan James, who's the drummer of Threshold. So the first track is called Money Factoring. I really like this. The vocal here is Paul Manzi. Excellent track. Some lovely keyboards from Oliver on that one. Fiona's Smile is a nice instrumental. It's just got the guitar work from Gordon and the piano of Oliver, fantastic. From the Turn of a Card, really good vocals here. Drumming on here from Johan James is super. Just a solid track. LWJ, you think it could be Rick. If you didn't know that it was Oliver, you would say that's Rick Wakeman playing. There is not much difference between their styles. It's an excellent track. The keyboard work on this is good. Maybe Tomorrow, another nice song. Love the vocal on here. Not quite sure if it's Paul or Benoit, but it's a really nice song. Where There Is Beauty, some lovely strings on this. Gordon's guitar work is lovely. My favourite track on this one though is This the Last Song I Write? It's got elements of Yes. It's got the capture of arena Paul Manzi style. It's got some great drumming from Johan. Brilliant musicians coming together to make a great song. A Mayfair Kiss. Again, we've got a great piece here. Oliver's fantastic on this. Then Anyone Can Fly. It's just Gordon and Oliver again. Very delicate and nice. A Perfect Day. I love this as well. They seem to, everyone seems to gel on that track. It's got a great vocal. Credit Carnival, another great vocal from Paul Manzi, just like he did when he was with Arena. It's a good little rocker track. One for Billy, which is a Gordon Giltrap track re-recorded, and it sounds very good. Ravens Will Fly Away. So the harmony singing on this is wonderful. You've got Paul Manzi, you've got Benoit David, very good singers, and you've even got Oliver who can do a little bit of vocals. It's an excellent track to end the album. It's a really good album. Super musicians. Not a disappointment when you look who's on it, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, coming up at number 5 from 2019, we have Trinity, which is basically Rodney Matthews, Jeff Scheetz and Oliver Wakeman. So you've got Rodney on drums, lyrics and words, Jeff on the guitars, Oliver on keyboards. John Payne does vocals and bass. Now John Payne, he was part of Asia when John Wetton left. Pete Coleman, bagpipes, recorders and keyboards. On the bass, there's 2 bass players. There's Steve Amado and the legendary Tony Clarkin. On the alto sax, we have Charles McNeil and Sarah Prothero on vocals. And the narrations are done by Mark A. Williams. And it also features a bit of harpsichord and church organ for the one and only Mr. Rick Wakeman. So the first track on here is called The Heavy Metal Hero. Some nice guitar work on that. I quite like that. Then we have Mirador. Now, Mirador is actually a name of an album, a compilation album that Magnum done, and Rodney Matthews, of course, did the artwork. It's got some great violin, some lovely keyboards from Oliver on that one. Up next, The Granite Curtain. This has got church organ on it, so it means it's Rick Wakeman. And it's got some great guitar work from Jeff on that as well. Night of the Bear Mountain, a good track. Intricate work here from Oliver. The bass is, I'm not sure who does the bass. There's so many good bass players on this album. Excellent track though. November Wedding, amazing track. It's got some lovely piano work on it. Then my favourite track on here is Stop the Slaughter. It's a very interplay piece. This is the drumming from a certain Rodney Matthews is pretty cool. But it's the interplay between the piano and the keyboard and the guitar. The Leave Taking comes next. Once again, Oliver's doing some great keyboard work on that. The harp again, it's all down to Oliver's wonderful timing and his keyboard work. Then we have Rivendell. Very, very good bass line. Not sure who it is, but it's absolutely got the harpsichords on this. The organ, it's really good. And then we have the last track, Trinity, one of the best tracks on the album. Some great drumming on here from Rodney, and the keyboard twists are great. I think this is a great collection of songs by some fine musicians. It's a fantastic album, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.1. Okay, then coming in at number 4 from 2021, we have Dark Fables, and it's an album from Oliver Wakeman and Clive Nolan of Pendragon and Arena, of course. So they do all the keyboard work on it, and you can tell the difference who's doing what. So the first thing you get is the overture But there's a lovely piece of violin on here from Tim Noons, who's played on Oliver's other albums as well. It's brilliant. The grandeur of this, the two keyboard styles really working together, and then some drumming that I'm not quite sure who does it. Okay, the second track is called I'd Give You Anything. There's the backing vocals are done by Charlotte Dickinson, who's worked with Oliver previously and on other stuff. Electric guitar is David Mark Pierce, who worked a lot with him on his solo. And the vocals is Andy Shears, another person that Oliver's worked with. And the acoustic guitar is Carl Groom. Now, Carl Groom is the guitarist in Threshold. Really good acoustic guitar from Carl. He's a great guitar player, very underrated. So is David Pierce, to be quite honest. Fabulous. And the vocal on it is super. The Mirror, you've got some electric guitar from David again. Nice vocal from Clive Nolan, he sings on this. And Oliver does the backing vocals, solid track. Elizabeth, you've got this lovely keyboard bit between, you've got Clive doing the keyboards, you've got Adam on the, Oliver, Adam's his brother, on the piano, and another great vocal from Clive. Why Do You Hate Me? This features Paul Manzi on vocals, and he was, at the time, he was Clive's bandmate in Arena, and that is a fantastic track. Lovely keyboards and a great vocal from Paul. Great singer. Then we have The Wedding Approaches. We've got Charlotte Dickinson appears on this. Tim Noons is back on the violin, and the classical guitar is done by the one and only Mr. Gordon Giltrap, and it's one of my favourite tracks on here. Some excellent classical guitar work from Gordon, and a lovely vocal from Charlotte. Then we have Time Passes. You've got David Mark Pierce on the guitar again, and Andy Sears doing the vocals, and it's my favourite track, and it's one of, I think, David's best guitar solos as well. The keyboard work between Clive and Oliver is superb. That's what is my favourite track. Two great keyboard players doing the business on that. Then we have A Descent into Madness, which is a sort of a, I would say it's a friendly duel between two guys that play their instruments fantastic. It's very, very good. I love that. Then we get this little instrumental thing called 221B. It's obvious what that means, and it's got a very 80s feel to it, but it's really good. And then we have The Man Called Sherlock. So we got Paul Manzi doing the vocals, and the guitars are done by David Mark Pierce. Very Arena this is. Very good keyboards from Clive Nolan on that one. And then we have the Baker Street Irregulars. Notice the won't be the last time that we get Sherlock Holmes on one of these. It's the acoustic guitars again from David. Then the cello is Adam Noons, and the violin is Tim Noons, and they work well together. It really gives to that track. It's a very short track, but excellent. And then we have the Jabberwocky. Again, we'll hear that name coming up. There's some cracking of a fire. It's brilliant. The words. It's a really good track, and a little bit of a story as well. Another brilliant album. Some great musicians on here. It's just pure quality. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.2. So coming up at number 3 from 1999 is Jabberwocky. Again, it's another Clive Nolan, Oliver Wakeman performance. Some great people playing on here. Bob Catley from Magnum as the boy, Tracy Hitchens as the girl, great singer Jam Plumridge as the Jabberwock, Paul Allison as the tree. You've got Pete G on the fretless bass, Clive and Oliver doing the keyboards, of course. Guitars and bass, Ian Solman. Peter Banks, yes, him was in Yes on guitars. John Geary acoustic guitar. We've got the great Tony Fernandez on drums, and narration by Rick Wakeman. And then there's a few little people in the choir. Well, if I say it's got, well, I'll tell you the people we all know. John Jowett, IQ and Arena. They've got Dave Wadscarf, who's an excellent drummer that can sing as well. John Mitchell, the great guitarist. Clive Nolan, Tina Riley, Michelle Young. They all do the choir. So we get an overture, which is the great thing. You get everyone doing their bit and shows what's going to be coming. Brilliant. Then it goes into this short little track, 3-minute track called Coming to Town. Wonderful vocal from Bob Catley. Yeah, he's just a fine singer and he does great work on it. The keyboards are great, the guitars are great. Then we have Dangerous World. Some lovely drumming on this. Not Tony Fernandez is a great drummer and he really shines on that track. The Forest, it's got that military feel to it. The drum and the keyboards, excellent little track. Glimmer of Light, some really nice piano on here, definitely from Oliver, and a wonderful vocal from Tracy Hutchins. Shadows, we've got Clive doing all the synthesizer sounds. You've got Oliver on the piano, wonderful. And my favourite track on here is a thing called Enlightenment. It's a great vocal on this. It's Bob Catley again. It's absolutely wonderful. Brilliant track. Dancing Water, interesting vocal on here. This is James on the vocals, playing the Jabberwocky. Absolutely killer and wonderfully delivered. Burgundy Rose, another fine vocal from Mr. Catley. The Mission has got an absolute belter of a guitar solo on it. It sounds like Peter Banks actually. I'm not gonna. Don't quote me on that. Call to Arms, very dramatic. The drums are great from Tony Fernandez. Excellent track. And then we get the finale, typical family. It's got some great singing on it. Actually ends the album well. Another fabulous album. Great story. Flows lovely. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.3. Okay, coming in at number 2. Now this is another collaboration, and this time it's with Steve Howe from 2001, and it's the 3 Ages of Magic. So you've got Oliver on keyboards, you've got Steve Howe on guitars and steel guitars. Tony Dixon appears on this on Uranium pipes, whistle and flute. Joe Greenland plays the violin. Dave Webstaff does all the drumming on this, and what a fabulous drummer he is. And Tim Buchan does bass on this. So the first track is the title track, Age of Magic. Wonderful keyboard runs on this from Oliver. Superb. It's all that wizardry and I love that. Mind Over Matter. We've got a great bass line on here from Tim Buchan. And then you've got Steve's guitar work on this is super. It's proper proggy sounding, brilliant stuff. The Forgotten King, one of my favourite tracks on here. You got this lovely acoustic guitar from Steve Howe and a little bit of piano work from Oliver, and you've got a corker. The Storyteller, one of my favourite tracks again. The keyboard runs on this are super. Then The Whale's Last Dance really captures these, like the way it's played. You can the grace of the whale in the water. It really adds to it. It's really well put together. Then we have Time Between Times. Daunting, atmospheric. It's got a lovely bit of keyboard and violin on this. It's wonderful. The Flight of the Condor. It's got a lot of pomp, harpsichord. Really nice track. Lurie and the Mermaid. Again, it's got this sort of nautical, watery feel to it. Great piece of work from Oliver on the piano. Standing Stones. You've got Uilleann pipes. It's Celtic. It's a wonderful piece of music. But my favourite track on here is a track called The Enchanter. Wonderful bass line, some great guitar work from Steve. Very proggy, and I like that. The Healer. Trumpets on here, strings, it really works. Then Through the Eyes of a Child, nice violin on this and piano, lovely little track. And then High Brasail, wonderful sort of Spanish guitar from Steve, really shows off Oliver's wonderful keyboard skills. It's an excellent, excellent album track to end it. Fabulous album again, from top to bottom, not a bad track on here, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.5. But my number one album is another Oliver Wakeman and Clive Nolan epic, and this time it's The Hound of the Baskervilles. Sherlock Holmes book, one of my favourite stories of Sherlock Holmes. So you've got, of course, Oliver and Clive doing keyboards, backing vocals, etc. And we've got Michelle Young on vocals, Tracy Hitchens on vocals, Paul Allison again on vocals, Ian Gould on vocals, Bob Catley on vocals, Ashley Holt, Paul Reichson, Carl Droom is doing guitars, Arjen Lucassen on guitar, Peter Banks on guitar, Era Elring on flute, Joe Greenland on the violin, Pete G on bass, John Jowett, Tony Fernandez on drums, and the narrator on this is the one and only Mr. Robert Powell. So you get an overture again, it's just a typical overture, gives you what's coming. And that goes lovely into The Curse of the Baskervilles. And Robert Powell sets the story with his narration, sets the scene, and then you just get this wonderful vocal. Super track. Three Broken Threads, good little rocker. The bass line in it is raunchy. It's pretty good. My favourite track on here, though, is Shadows of the Fate. It starts off with a lovely Robert Powell setting the scene with that wonderful voice of his. Bob Catley then comes on, and it's absolutely one of his best vocals he's done with these setups. Brilliant stuff. Home in the Mire. The keyboards on here are wonderful. You can tell the distinctive styles of Clive and Oliver on this. Absolutely wonderful. Run for Your Life. Tracy Hutchins doing the vocal on this. Really well put together track, and she sings wonderfully on here. Then we have Picture of a Lady, which is a lovely piano piece. Absolutely wonderful. The Argument, the strings are excellent on this. The stringy sound. You've got Tracy doing another fine vocal as well. Second Light. This is a short piece, but it's one of Robert Powell's wonderful narrations, which goes into Selden. This has got one of the best guitar solos on this. And the singing on this, I do believe, is Paul Allison, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's a great track. Death on the Moor. Once again, that narration from Robert really adds to it, and then they get the music coming in. Absolutely electrifying. Then we have Be Your Side. Some lovely guitar works on this, and I think you don't really appreciate this unless you've heard it under the headphones. Waiting, another solid performance vocally by Bob Catley. The riffs are great on this. And then we get the last thing, Chasing the Howl. The music's fantastic, but the bit on this is the dramatics of Robert's vocal, his storytelling. It's dramatic. He sets the scene, and it just is a wonderful way to end this. Now, this is a fantastic interpretation of a brilliant book. As I said, my favourite Sherlock Holmes story, wonderfully brought to life by not just the performance, but the star of this one is Robert Powell's narration. He sucks you in from the start, and he sort of starts it and finishes it. It's absolutely brilliant. You know, I love the narration. I like the return to the journey of the centre of the earth and the journey. It's just very, very good. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.8. So there we go. We've covered, I think, everything. Well, not everything, because he has played on so much stuff, and we have covered bits of him before. So really enjoyed doing this. I know 1 or 2 people that has got them into Oliver's solo stuff. So that's all for this one. Coming up next, we've got Perfect Side. I've put myself on the line here because this album that I'm doing today is an album that 2 of my friends like, being Mike and Nick. So if I don't get this wrong, I'll get some stick when I go to Leeds. So that's coming up next. Bye for now.